Well, I saw it Friday morning. It's way cheaper to go Friday morning than Thursday night.
Well, I saw it Thursday night because I had just gotten out of an alumni group at NIFA,
Oh, yeah.
and I was like, I don't really, there's nothing on TV for me to go home to. And it was sort of one of those things like, I had gotten out at like 10 o'clock. The movie started at 10:30. So it's like the amount of time it would take me to get to the theater and get tickets, I would just be getting there in time for the movie. So I figured, well, I'll do it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it was actually cool because it forced me to see it at AMC Prime, where they have the nice assigned seatings that recline, and they're all fancy, and I'm like, this is nice. Though the one thing about the reclined seats is, like, it's one thing to go see, like, X-Men in those, but if I was seeing, like, a documentary or something, I would have fallen asleep in those things so easily.
I don't know what you're talking about. A lot of documentaries are very, very intense, Patrick.
Yeah, but... Okay, like, if I was seeing, like, a foreign drama about, you know, like, a boy connecting with his mother, I would have fallen asleep so easily in those chairs because they were comfy. There were a few times in the movie I could even see myself going like, oh, Wolverine's killing somebody, okay. I'm
I
awake.
had like the exact opposite experience, which I find really funny, because like I planned ahead. I knew I was doing this all week, looking forward to it all week. I went to the 10 o'clock in the morning showing because it's 6:50.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Like, let's be real, that's a great price. And I also went to an AMC, but I went and I met a friend there, and we sat in like our tiny little seats because it's a dinky little theater because I live in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, no, and we watched the movie, and there were like, 10 other people in the theater with us. But it was really funny because the people who were going to go see like X-Men Days of Future Past at 10 o'clock in the morning, the day it's been released, are going to be the nerdiest nerds you've ever seen in your life. So these people, it was hilarious because they were totally laughing at like super insider references, and I'm used to being the only person laughing at those. So it was this really nice feeling of like, oh, I'm with my own. So nice.
My people.
My people. So I will actually say I was really impressed because there was one guy at the very end, like at that very end credit scene with the pyramids, who was like, oh my gosh, yes! And everyone else is just going, what the crap? But there
I love that end credit sequence. That was awesome.
One guy who was like, I know what that is!
Yeah.
So I'll admit I did not know what that was.
You didn't know what that was?
I didn't recognize it. I may have known. I just didn't recognize it.
You didn't hear the people chanting, En Sabanor, En Sabanor.
No?
Ah.
Sorry.
I'm the superior.
I was distracted.
Yeah. No, when it comes to comic book stuff, I'm always the superior geek.
Yeah, you are the superior geek when it comes to comic book stuff. I'm the superior geek when it comes to other things.
Yes.
Like, anything with a female lead. I'm the superior geek when it comes to stuff with women.
Literature. In our little group,
I am.
You tend to be the most literate, like the most well-read of actual books.
Given the fact that my computer is literally resting on a bookshelf right now, yes. I have a wheelie bookshelf. Which I think is probably one of the bigger signs of nerd, like when you own a wheelie bookshelf. Just saying. But no, so yeah, so I really liked it. I have problems with it because it wouldn't, let's be real, it wouldn't be like an X-Men movie if I didn't have problems with it. But
It wouldn't be an X-Men movie if there weren't like things to have problems with it, because
exactly,
yeah,
it's just those movies. They're good, but they're pretty hit or miss. But this one, I honestly, because I had really low expectations going in, because I kept seeing the trailer and I kept thinking, this is either going to be so freaking amazing or it's going to suck.
yeah.
And I'll be honest, I was definitely leaning towards the suck. Because everything I saw for it, I was like, this is dumb. I don't want it. This looks terrible. And then it was really good.
I was worried it was going to be corny. I was worried we were going to get like another Last Stand, basically.
I wasn't worried it was going to be corny. I was worried it wasn't going to make any sense. Or that it was going to be like so much stuff and there wasn't going to be any character. It was just going to be stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's how I feel about Last Stand. Is not necessarily that it was corny, just that like we had to gloss over so much that it just doesn't work. But no, I really, really liked it. Now, I will say, this is my number one problem with it, is that they managed to take... I totally understand why they had Wolverine going back instead of Kitty Pryde. Like, the explanation makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
In this universe, she would be like -27.
Yeah.
Like
she would be just a sperm and an egg floating around.
Even sure that her parents have been born yet.
Yeah.
Like,
probably.
Possible her parents aren't actually even alive, and we're talking about her grandparents. Like, sending her back just doesn't make sense. However, by taking that role and giving it to Wolverine, what you get is you get a story in which all the principal characters are male, and the only two female characters of note, that being Kitty Pryde and Mystique, are both basically just means to an end. Like, Mystique really operates effectively as a ping pong ball in this movie. Back and forth between different ideologies. And while the movie is ostensibly about helping her make the right choice and letting her choose and decide our fate, it's not. It's really, really not. The whole movie is about, like, let's force Mystique to make the right choice. And, like, they can put it a different way, but that's really what it is. And so Mystique doesn't come off as a character with any agency in this movie. Whether it's because, the past, it turns out that time is immutable and all things have to happen. There's that speech, which is basically saying, like, she's going to do it no matter what, it doesn't matter. Or there's the idea of saying, like, no matter what, she's choosing one ideology over the other. There's really no sense you ever get that Mystique is her own person in this movie. And we never understand her motivations fully. Like, yeah, we have that scene where she's looking at the pictures and crying, and that's a very moving scene. It's also a scene that reveals that they chose to kill off most of the female characters from the first movie. Isn't a great choice.
All the characters from the first movie.
Most of the characters from the first movie, yeah. But also, I mean, like, let's bear in mind, the first movie was surprisingly diverse and had a fairly reasonable cast of female characters. Of those female characters, only one of them was in this movie. And incidentally, it was the pretty blonde one. Just saying. Well, one of the pretty blonde ones. There were two. But just in general, I think, of course, it makes sense that Mystique is there. And I like the idea that she is the one responsible for the fate of all humanity, but it's not shown from her perspective. The entire movie is from the perspective of the people trying to change her mind, which means that she doesn't come across as a character with any agency. Everything we know about her is filtered through the lens of, we have to stop her and change what she's doing. And we never understand her. Similarly, Kitty Pryde is pretty much just a vehicle for her powers.
Yeah.
She's not a character in the movie. Storm's just there for a couple cool special effects scenes. And same thing with Blink. Just in general, the women in this movie were pretty disappointing. I love the
So
story.
I will give them one credit, is that they seem to Blink is basically the key to the X-Men's entire fighting in the future,
That was pretty cool.
because everything they did involved her power.
I did like that.
While they didn't give enough character development to the female characters, they did at least let them kick some ass.
That is true. But it felt cheap. You know? Like, well, I will say it was kind of weird. It was this weird juxtaposition, because in the future you have this diverse gendered group of people, super diverse ethnically. Like, I think that's the most diverse X-Men team we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Awesome group of powers and like
We have an Asian,
personality, and we
a
barely
Hispanic guy, we've got a Native American. Yeah, we really.
a Chinese woman, like we barely see them at all. And instead we spend all our time in the past, which, to be fair, makes sense. That's how the story works. But literally we spend all our time with a bunch of white dudes. That's it. Like, we just spend all our time with a bunch of white dudes. We go back to the past, and everything is lily white. Even the characters that she picks up in Vietnam and she, like, ships back, one of them was black. Everybody else was white. Or Toad.
Toad was white. I mean, he was an ugly white dude.
I'm just not saying you should necessarily assign an ethnicity to Toad.
Yeah.
Toad. But yeah, no, it rubbed me the wrong way.
But I mean, part of the reason is that the whole movie is basically a bromance between Charles and Magneto.
I don't think we need the B.
That is true. It is just a straight up romance.
Like, I give this movie a lot of credit. Every X-Men movie, you're watching it and you're just sort of like, well, this is so what friends do? Totally, yeah. Like watching Supernatural. Like, yeah, no. I'm just like this with all my friends. Mm-hmm. But every movie gets a little bit more along the lines of, really, we're just gonna keep calling you guys friends? This movie, they didn't, like, explicitly address it, but they did pretty much address it, because at one point Wolverine is looking at Charles and he's like, well, you've been betrayed by, like, the person you love, and, like, it's really clear that he's talking about Erik.
Yeah. Nah,
it is 100% clear that we are saying straight up that Charles loves Erik because Charles loves Erik. We're all very clear on this.
I mean, they even had to put a flashback in to make us realize, oh, he's talking about Mystique. Like, because just watching that scene, you immediately think, oh, it's Magneto. And even when the two characters interact, it's like they're acting like, exes who have been forced to be in a room together. Like,
well, and like the whole thing of like, I was sent by the two of you together, and then when they go get Mystique and he's like, Erik and I are here together.
Yeah.
Okay, and then that scene where they come out and they're in the Pentagon and then the guards start shooting at them right before the best scene in the movie. Did you notice that Charles grabs Erik and is like pushing him away bodily? Did you notice that? Because like, oh, we're in immediate death. I'm going to cling to you, my arch enemy. Cling. Yeah, that was super straight.
Well, I just think back to to X-Men First Class when they're in the Blackbird, and it's like doing a somersault, and Erik basically uses his magnetic powers to hold himself against the hull with Charles Xavier underneath him, just pressing him against the wall. It's like,
oh, clearly my solution here is that I have to spoon you.
Yeah.
Like
not that I could just use my power to hold him there. No, I gotta use my body to hold him there.
I think they're, just in general, especially these movies, like, I definitely the old movies too. But with the old movies, there's so much distance between them that they really just feel like, okay, I'm not gonna lie, watching those movies, I flash back to my long divorced grandparents. My grandparents who like divorced in 1966. So they've been, well, they were divorced for longer than they were married by the time my mom was like 20. But that's still like, I mean, now they've been divorced for so long. It's just one of those things where they're so like, they've kind of come back around again. Oh yeah, we're friends now. Whatever. Yeah, we get on fine. Meh.
And that's what they're like in the future.
That's what they're like in the future, which kind of cracks me up. Though in this movie, in the future, they were definitely more along the lines of, let's hold hands. Cute old.
I have to die. I want to die with you.
I know, right? That was basically the vibe we were getting. But
I really think that when in that last scene where like the Sentinel is breaking into the hall and Magneto's there on the floor, it would like Charles should have just gone next to him and put a hand on his shoulder or something. Like, just.
Are we sure he didn't?
He might have.
Yeah, and then it's just funny to like take this and then I don't think it changes the characters at all. But when we put it in a younger context, it's going to be more passionate and it's going to be more like,
yeah,
I loved you and you betrayed me.
Yeah.
No, though. And it's just, oh my gosh, it's just funny. Like, okay, let's talk about the ending. Let's talk about that ending confrontation scene. You've got the two of them again being justified by ideology, while Charles Xavier is again collapsed on the ground, bleeding.
Yeah.
I just, oh my god. Oh, kind of cracks me up.
On the ground, and once again in the arms of someone other than Eric.
I
This time
know.
it was Beast. Last time it was Myra.
That is true. That is true. A lot of people have pointed out, like, don't you now just want some kind of, like, something to cover those 10 years when it was just, or not 10 years, it was probably more like 7 years, but still the 7 years when it was just Beast and Charles Xavier in the mansion by themselves.
Well, no, it wasn't completely 7 years. They had a school going.
They had a school going, but he says the school wasn't going for very long. And then when the first round of the draft hit for the Vietnam War, which would have been mid-60s.
Okay.
Now in 1975.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
At least 12 years later. So there is at least 7 years of them just, or no, 1973. So it's 10 years, or it's 11 years after the first movie, but it's still like, that's still like 7.
They've been living together for a couple of years. Like, just
together for over 5 years.
Yeah.
Just the two of them by themselves.
Well, they might have had some other people there, because
They say in the movie. They say in the movie that it's just the two of them.
everybody.
After the draft hit, he closed down, like, most of the students left, he closed down the school. And, like, just the time frame doesn't work. The time frame you have to understand is, like, they're talking about the first round of the draft grabbed most of the, like, grabbed the other boys. It grabbed Sean, it grabbed Alex, and everybody else who was there. And then, like, all the other students just kind of drifted away. Well, that would have taken at most a couple of years. And we're still talking about, like, over 5 years.
Yeah.
I just can't get over this. Like, I want to see those 5 years of, like, Hank videotaping Star Trek and being alone in his little, like, man cave and then being like, Charles, you have to eat food. Come eat food, Charles. Charles is on a bender. Picking up and carrying Charles. But it's just one of those things where what I really want is I really want a scene of Hank and Eric talking about those 5 years. Not Charles. I want Beast and Magneto talking about those 5 years because you have to understand, Beast has probably been party to so many with Erik and his physique and his wonderfulness, and why did he choose evil?
Yeah, I mean, but Beast would be furious at me. That's probably why Beast was kicking the shit out of Magneto so much. It's like, do you know what you did to Charles? You broke his heart. He was
like, I mean, I think at this point, because it's one of those things where you're like, yeah, Beast had a thing for Raven. But I don't think anyone, including Beast, thinks it was even close to the thing that Charles had for Erik. And Erik had for Charles. Have, not past tense.
No, it's like when like your friend gets broken, gets their heart broken. Like you're almost more mad at the person than there, because you see your friend and they're hurt, and you want to hurt the guy or girl who did it.
Yeah. No, it was just, I would really like to see that scene, is what I'm saying. Like, I really want to see Beast, like, post-fight, like, they fought each other, you know, Beast is basically trying to beat him up, and they're sitting there in, like, the wreckage. Beast is just like, you're a dick, you know that?
Yeah. Do you know how many times I had to hear about Charles saying how wonderful you were?
You're not wonderful, you're terrible!
Yeah. Do you know how much Haagen-Dazs I had to buy so Charles could get over you?
But also, I really want there to be a scene with Erik being like, well, you were alone in a mansion with him for 5 years. Just Charles
Okay, we're talking about you.
I'm uncomfortable with this. I'm uncomfortable with human emotions. So yeah, so that's how I felt about the movie. I also loved it. I really was not anticipating loving Quicksilver.
I know.
I thought he was going to be terrible, and no,
Yeah.
he's not terrible. He is amazing.
I mean, if anything, he was the one reason for watching all of those trailers and stuff that I thought, this is going to be corny, this is going to be stupid.
Oh my gosh.
Because he's dressed in that outfit.
This is terrible. But then when you find out that he's just like, he's an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
And I do like that they hinted at Magneto might be his dad.
Oh my gosh, that scene is amazing. Just, I love the subtlety of what they did in that scene. Just that, hey, you can manipulate metal. My mom knew a guy who could manipulate metal. And Magneto's face going, please no.
Oh. I was drunk. It's just one of those things, you know? You're curious.
I love that his face was very much along the lines of, oh no. And then we never talk about it again.
Yep.
But it's such a clear, like, not this one. Please not that. Because imagine, if Magneto's going to have any kid, finding out that Quicksilver and that version of Quicksilver is your kid, I feel like that would be traumatizing for Magneto in particular.
Mm.
And I have to say that the scene with Jim Croce's Time in a Bottle was pretty much the best sound cue I've heard in years. It was so good. Also, I've had that song stuck in my head since Friday.
That was just bizarre. Like that was
Perfect.
It was an odd choice, but it fit so well. It's like, you know, and he's moving the bullets. I loved that.
When he's moving, I love the part where he's like making the two guys hit each other, and like putting on the hat and just so good. Or the part where he just sticks his finger out and gets gravy.
Yeah, that was just.
Oh man, it was so good.
I mean, I guess they realized he was, like, they had to really make sure he was good because...
Well, can we just appreciate for a second, though? Because I didn't realize this until I read the credits, and then I was like, holy crap, what? Because I hadn't put together who Evan Peters is. Evan Peters So Aaron Taylor Johnson is playing Quicksilver
Yeah.
in
Oh yeah, they were both in Kick-Ass.
right, but they're Kick-Ass and Ass Kick.
Oh yeah.
Literally, Quicksilver is being played by Kick-Ass and Ass Kick. That's hilarious.
That is.
Or maybe it's Ass Kicker. I don't actually remember what his super.
No, it's ass. I think
It's Ass Kicker or just Ass Kick,
ass kick.
which I love about him. I love that
He basically is just a complete like rip off.
Oh no, he's not. He's literally wearing just a color reversed version of the same.
Yeah.
Suit. But I love that about him because it's terrible. But so that cracked me up a lot. Oh wow.
But now it's kind of funny because I was originally like worried about this version of Quicksilver and totally excited about Age of Ultron Quicksilver. But now after having seen this movie and having seen Godzilla, now it's like, now I really like this Quicksilver and now I'm worried about the Age of Ultron Quicksilver.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even put together that they were playing a married couple in Godzilla. Oh, that's hilarious.
And they're going to be playing twins.
Yep. Well, to be fair, Divergent.
Yeah. I think we mentioned this in a Godzilla discussion, yes.
It hadn't really clicked, like, oh, it's Elizabeth Olsen and Aaron Taylor Johnson. That's kind of funny.
And let's face it, there's always been an incestuous thing going on with Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, especially in Ultimates.
Well, it's not actually subtext in Ultimates, I don't think.
No, in subtext, they straight up, like...
Not subtext, I mean, like, it's text. Like,
yeah, it's text. It's not... It's above text. It's not some. It's above text.
It is, in fact, the only thing a lot of people know about their characters.
Yeah.
Oh, those are Magneto's kids. They don't.
And they like to play Lannister.
No. The Lannisters play Magneto's children.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so
I'm Quicksilver, and you can be Scarlet Witch.
Back and forth.
And let's get Tyrion, and he can be Toad.
No, Tyrion can be Lorna.
Oh, yeah.
No one loves Lorna.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And that's another thing. I was worried Peter Dinklage, I was going to be thrown off, but he did an excellent performance as Boulevard Trask.
He really didn't have anything to work with.
Yeah.
Like, there's no characterization given to Trask.
No, he's just a villain.
He's just there. Like, we don't even know why he hates mutants. One of the things I like about X-Men 2...
No, they did explain it. He doesn't hate them.
Oh, right.
He thinks they're a common enemy. Humanity can join together.
Which is fine, whatever. But there was no personal element to it, which I always find very helpful in a villain, especially a villain that I'm going to love-hate. Like, what I like about Stryker, I actually really liked how this movie handled Stryker.
Mm.
But even in X-Men 2, his motivation actually made perfect sense. Like, his son's crazy. His son is a crazy mutant. Now, part of that is because he drove his son crazy. But part of that does actually appear to have just been his son being crazy. Like, it's really not clear which is the chicken and the egg on that one. Like, did William make Jason crazy, or did Jason make William crazy, or were they just both crazy and they were crazy at each other until they crazied? But I like that you actually kind of understand what's going on with the two of them. And I like that this movie showed his growing... I mean, it showed that he, like, always hated mutants, which, fair enough, I think he probably did. But it also shows his growing understanding of them as a threat. That having been said, I legitimately don't understand the ending. Like, where Mystique is pretending to be Stryker.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense to me either. Like,
I liked the idea of, like, oh, Stryker's the one who pulls Wolverine out of the bay. Okay, now we're going to explain, like, how this all happens, etc.
Now we know why Stryker and why Wolverine ended up becoming part of Weapon X and all that, and
Yeah, I mean, like, if we've changed the timeline, then how does he still end up in Weapon X? And,
if Mystique was posing as Stryker, does that mean she's the one who gave him adamantium, or where is the
I don't
real William
understand.
Stryker? I guess is
We
the.
also don't know that Wolverine still has the adamantium in the future.
Hmm.
Because we didn't see his claws.
I hope he does.
Also, as a side note, this movie seems to totally retcon, the Wolverine. Because in the Wolverine, the adamantium was taken out of his skeleton, and he had
It was taken out of his claws.
What?
It was taken out of his claws.
Well, it was taken out of his claws, but why did he have metal claws in the future?
Well, I can only assume that probably Magneto gave him.
I mean, I think this is an alternate timeline, but it does raise questions of where in the timeline, like, which timeline is the Wolverine in? Is the Wolverine in this timeline? Because that doesn't seem to make sense, because it's got Jean in it the entire time. Is the Wolverine in the dystopian future timeline? Well, that doesn't seem to make sense, because no one's old enough for that to have happened and then the world to have descended into civil war that destroyed 80% of the population in between the two movies. I don't know what's happening.
Well, the Wolverine implied that it was happening right before Days of Future Past started.
Right, except Days of Future Past made no reference to that. Whatsoever.
No, just the end of the Wolverine showed like the Sentinels going online, and it showed Professor Xavier and Magneto recruiting Wolverine to fight them.
Did it? Well, okay, basically what I'm saying is that there are a lot of plot holes still. Specifically surrounding the Wolverine. Because, like, if they recruited him to fight Sentinels...
And actually...
I don't understand.
I think the entire timeline is different because... Well, wait, Days of Future Past implied that the Super Sentinels that could adapt and everything, they got that from basically vivisecting Mystique.
Right.
But they vivisected Mystique in like the 70s. How did then Mystique be around for the X-Men movies?
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is just a completely different timeline.
Also, as a side note, it doesn't work because unless Mystique had a kid in the past 11 years and we're just not mentioning it, Azazel's dead now, which means Nightcrawler can't exist.
I think she was crying over the dead mutants. Probably she was crying because of Azazel. She probably did have a kid.
I mean, also he's dead.
11 years, that's plenty of time for them to have...
I'm just saying, we did manage to completely avoid that topic.
Yeah.
Also, I don't really appreciate the fact that the one woman of color from this movie franchise who had a substantial role, who isn't Halle Berry's Storm, was brutally torn apart and has her body parts on display. It's not really the best message.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that I would have enjoyed the movie more if, there were other women in it.
Yeah.
Ever. I would have even enjoyed it if January Jones's Emma Frost was in it. Because actually I really liked her Emma Frost, not gonna lie. But I thought she actually did a great job. But I just would have appreciated it if there were someone. There were women in the 70s, I promise.
Yes.
And they weren't all just secretaries and people's wives. Or nameless bimbos in bars.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still really like the movie, though.
It was a good movie.
It was a genuinely good movie.
And it teased at a great tease at the end.
It did. Also, I have to say, I really, really liked the fact that... I really like, in general, the fact that First Class series, the young X-Men movies, um, are about have Charles Xavier not having his crap together.
Mm.
I actually really like that because Charles Xavier is, well, he makes a terrible main character in the future because he's good. Like, he's got it. He knows what he's doing. Charles Xavier knows everything. Charles Xavier is emotionally stable and
Yeah.
obviously rather boring. Whereas seeing Charles Xavier be a freaking mess is, one, relatable, and two, good storytelling. It's really interesting, that idea of, like, this guy becomes the emotional center of effectively the known mutant universe. What happens when he has a bad day? What does Charles Xavier do if he has a bad day? Like, who does he go to? And so this whole concept of, I need help discovering my powers, there's literally no one who can help me except for me. I found that actually to be really moving. And also just because, in general, humanizing Charles Xavier makes for a better story. It's a more interesting story when he's kind of a screwed up punk. And I like that they do that with these movies. That Charles Xavier is not perfect. He's kind of an idiot and a jerk. And that's good. Yeah, I liked it.
And in love with Magneto.
Okay, that was just never a question.
Yeah.
That's true in every version of this character. Didn't they straight up have a kid together in the comics at one point? Isn't that a thing that happened?
Did Magneto and Charles Xavier have a kid?
I want to say that in some way it did. I don't remember how, but I want to say there was something about that. Or like one of them had a kid and the other one raised it or something.
Well, Charles Xavier has a kid, yeah.
David.
He had Legion,
Yeah.
who was basically a super schizophrenic with pretty much every mutant power you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
And each one of his different personalities had a different power.
Yeah.
Yeah, he actually tried to kill Magneto.
Huh.
And that's what actually started the Age of Apocalypse storyline, because he went back in time to kill Magneto and accidentally killed Professor Xavier. So the X-Men were never formed, and Apocalypse ended up taking over the world.
Gotcha.
Very cool storyline.
Oh, no, that's a good one. Yeah, no, I've just been thinking about that, like, yes. Magneto, Professor X, the love that shall never die. I saw a really great cartoon ages ago of, like, Charles Xavier dies and Magneto's holding him and going, why? I didn't want this! And, like, super dramatic, and all the X-Men and the Brotherhood are standing around catching up.
Mm.
They're just like, he'll be back in a couple months. And like, I think it had, like, Nightcrawler and Storm talking to Mystique and her being like, what are your intentions towards my son? And, like, just this whole thing of everybody catching up with everybody else and, like, la 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 la. Oh yeah, he's just gonna do that for a while. Fine. I appreciated it a lot. Because that's kind of how it is. Charles Xavier dies a lot.
All of them die a lot.
I did really love the ending, for the record, where it's like, Jean, and he's having
You're alive. Oh, and Scott's alive too. Great.
Never changed. Damn it. I really enjoyed that moment of Scott being like, okay.
Yeah. Get away from my wife.
Not just get away from my wife, but like, well, when Wolverine goes like, I'm so glad to see you, and Scott's like, uh-huh. Yeah.
Dude, we had breakfast like yesterday. What's
Not
the?
even that, just being like, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I don't want to know. Never tell me. I enjoyed that. I guess to sum up my feelings about this movie, there's so much about this movie that I enjoyed so much, and there were just a couple really big things that I hated. Which was pretty
Not
horrible.
enough women.
Not enough women, and the women that they did show didn't do anything. They weren't given any part of the story. The storytelling narrative isn't about them. Like, for all that Mystique is the central character, she has no agency, and this is not about her transformation as a character. Even a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, by the end of the movie, she's pretty much exactly the same as she was before. She decided not to kill Trask, but it's like,
She didn't change. Well, we just don't know, because we see nothing. Nothing of her emotional state. So, that seems crummy storytelling to me. Especially since the problem I have is that this movie has such potential to be really, really engaging on that front. If we had made Mystique the central character and actually gotten inside her head of what's going through her mind, that would actually be super engaging. Because think about it. I mean, think about a movie of her dealing with the, I want to avenge my friends. This could start something terrible, but not stopping it could start something worse. Her dealing with the moral implications of save one, save a million, but how do I know who to save and who to kill? That actually strikes me as being a really engaging film. Instead, what we got was, she can't do it. If she does it, it's terrible, and she will cause the apocalypse, pretty much. It's really reductive. It removes the importance of the decision that she's making and turns it into just, I don't want her to be a killer. Well, that's not the issue at hand. The issue at hand is, how does Mystique best make a choice? She's making a moral choice to protect the future. That is what she firmly believes she's doing. If we want to respect that about her character, we have to pay attention to what that choice is. I tried over.
and actually, I kind of didn't like it because they made it seem like if she doesn't kill Trask, the future won't happen. No, it's if she gets captured, the evil future will happen. Because they use her to make the evil Sentinels. She can kill Trask all she wants.
Well, that's the other thing, is like, because she kills Trask publicly,
yes,
then everyone's afraid of mutants. If she just killed Trask and not gotten caught, then who cares?
Yeah.
Trask,
I mean, basically, instead of shooting him, she just poisoned his soup.
Like, honestly, and like, I mean, she clearly had access to him at other times.
Yeah.
Why didn't she just, like,
wait in his office when she's stuck in his office, plant a bomb, and then when he gets back to his office, boom, there.
Well, there were just other plot problems, too. Like, the only way we can stop the Sentinels is by killing Trask. No, you could just blow up all his research.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't that work? Like, he doesn't have the funding to recreate it. And Congress clearly doesn't want to give him the funding. So instead of making a huge spectacle of mutants, why don't we just blow up his research, and then what? He's going to be like, mutants did it! And the government's going to go, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Mutants did it? Sure.
That's nice, buddy. Like, I just... Personally, I think it gives Mystique very little credit. Mystique pretty much has the powers to be the ultimate assassin, and this is what she came up with.
Yeah.
And it gives them no credit for only being able to see it one way. Charles's point actually makes a little bit of sense, because he's like, well, I don't think she's a killer. Fine. I don't think you should be trying to make her choices for her, but whatever. Like, Like, that at least makes sense, that he's coming at it from the perspective of, I don't want her to kill someone because it'll change who she is. Fine. Eric's standpoint is dumb as hell. His entire standpoint in this movie is the stupidest thing. Like, oh, if we kill this guy, we're going to set off a giant mutant war, like mutant versus human war, and it's going to kill 80% of humanity total, worldwide, ever, possibly more. And your solution to this is to shoot her, let them get her genetic material off of the blood that you left on the pavement because you shot her, and then proceed to do something much worse and scarier so that everyone will be really, really afraid of mutants.
Yeah. I mean, actually, at the end, Mystique is the hero because they put in the newspaper, "Mutant saves president." It's like,
right, yeah, Mystique's the hero, but like, seriously, Magneto, that was the dumbest thing you could have possibly done.
yeah.
Way to be the worst. Just like, okay, you want to protect mutants? How about you don't immediately criminalize them to everyone ever?
Yeah.
So I guess what we're saying is that Magneto's an idiot.
Yes.
Also, as someone rightly pointed out, if he gets a tan when he's wearing his helmet, the tan line on his face will be the shape of it.
That might be intentional.
Yeah, it's one that's pointing towards his mouth.
Yeah. Oh my god, I never realized that actually. Yeah, like I don't think I ever realized.
That's the shape that it leaves.
The shape of his helmet is.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, and I also love, like, he's so afraid of Charles taking control of his mind. And literally, here's the list of things that Charles did when taking control of his mind. Get this thing off me. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, that was it. It was, please get the piece of thing off.
I don't think that's the only thing he did while he was taking control of Magneto's mind.
That is the only thing he did.
No, I mean, like, that we saw in the movie.
Patrick, that's what's funny, though, is that, like, Magneto's like, no, you can't come in my mind. You'll do bad things in my mind. And Charles' immediate instinct is, you dropped like a giant sheet of metal on me, you jerk. Like, he has access to all of Magneto's awesome, amazing power, and he, for once and for all, can stop this terrorist threat, and he's just sort of like, oh, thank goodness, now I can breathe. Really, Eric? That's what you're so afraid of? You're afraid that Charles is gonna nice you to death? Anyway. He cracks me up. A lot.
Mm.
He's an idiot.
Yeah.
There's a tag on Archive of Our Own that I love, which is, Eric logic is the best logic. And I just love it because it's an appreciation of the fact that nothing Magneto does ever makes sense to a not crazy person.
Yeah.
Ever. All of his plans are like, well, congratulations. That's literally the worst thing you could have thought of. Good job.
Yeah, now that I think about it, you're right. I mean, in the first movie, it's like, hey, I'm going to turn a bunch of politicians into mutants. In the second movie, hey, I'm going to kill all the humans on the Earth. And in the third movie, I'm just going to send an army of mutants against another army of mutants.
It's just like, seriously, what are you actually trying to do? Because you're not very good at it.
No.
It is.
He really should just be like, Charles, could you just tell me how to do stuff? Because I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Seriously though, and like, there's this moment where you have to stop and go, so he used to hunt Nazis for a living.
Yeah.
Is that like a Keystone Cops routine or something? Like, how did that even go? He's clearly not good at making plans.
He was good at hunting Nazis because he found them, apparently. Like,
Because he found a bunch of them, like, yeah, good job. But apparently, when we get to anything more complex than simple assassination, nope, too hard, can't do it.
and it's actually funny because watching this latest movie, Magneto is the ultimate multitasker.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a scene in it where he's in the hotel. It's like he's sewing up a wound in the back of his head. He's watching a film strip on like how the Sentinels work, and he's watching a news report on
mutants. Watching the film strip by running stuff with his brain.
Yeah, exactly.
And like hovering stuff with his brain. And yeah, and he's watching a news report. And like you have to think like this guy knows, you know, I don't know how many languages. I think 4 at least that we know of.
German, English, French.
Doesn't he know Portuguese?
Oh yeah, and Portuguese, yeah.
So he speaks at least 4 languages, probably more. And he is clearly really good at murder.
Yeah.
But he is the worst tactician I've ever seen. I don't understand how that man can play chess. I legitimately don't. Because chess requires thinking strategically, and I'm not convinced he can do that. At all. Ever.
Probably never wins at chess.
He only wins when Charles is, like, super drunk.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just in general, I think Magneto is an interesting character because he's so terrible at everything.
Well, he's not terrible at simple things. It's because, again, multitasking, but
True.
He's terrible at planning.
He's so bad at it. So yeah. I guess here's a larger question. How on earth did Erik end up as the head of a multinational terrorist organization? Did they just look at him and be like, I don't really feel like arguing about this. But like, can we at least hope that they have someone else ordering their supplies and stuff? Because I just don't see him being...
Because he's the most powerful mutant, like, you know...
Right, yeah, he's the most powerful mutant. That doesn't mean he should be in charge. Or at the very least, I hope that they have someone who's much better with administrative and planning stuff, doing the day-to-day. Like,
they need someone whose mutant power is just being able to plan shit.
They need someone whose mutant power is being, like, logical. I mean, that's actually why I'm really sad that they killed off Emma Frost, because that is what she does. That's her thing, is she just stands there and she's like, Erik, you're being an idiot again.
Did they kill off Emma Frost? I didn't see her.
I thought she was one of the dead bodies. I'm not sure.
Angel? Azazel?
I saw that they killed Angel, Azazel, and Banshee.
Yeah.
I know they killed them. I thought I saw her. I'd have to watch again to be sure.
Well, you know, they probably killed her because one of the Sentinels in the future does that diamond thing that she does. So they probably got that from, like, her DNA.
Yeah.
So if she didn't die in the past, she died at some point.
Well, also it'd be a plot hole if she didn't die, just because, like, what was she doing for the past 11? Because, like, Magneto breaks her out of prison at the end of the first movie. So if she's not dead, where is she? Why isn't she here? Just saying. But I mean, I like how in the canon she does that for Magneto a fair amount, actually, before she switches sides. Is just standing there and being like, you're being an idiot. I'm going to go over here now. P.S. You're dumb. I appreciate that about her, that she's the only person who calls him out on his crap who's not Charles.
So it was a good movie.
It was a good movie.
And it teased at a good movie as well. So
It Good. I hold out. I hold out strong hopes. I also hold out strong hopes that eventually we're going to get a solo Storm movie.
With a different cast, someone other than Halle Berry, right?
Actually, honestly, I liked Halle Berry as Storm in this movie more than any of the others, though that could possibly be because she didn't have any lines.
Yeah. She's on screen for about a minute and a half.
Yeah, which I feel weird about being like, I really liked her in this one. But I hold out hopes for a Lupita Nyong'o or a Bianca Lawson.
I will agree with that.
I also I mean, a Storm origin movie would be so rad.
It would be cool.
They're doing a Storm solo comic starting in July.
I did not know that. I might have to pick that up.
Make a list. Because I'm crazy.
Okay, so next week we're going to do a TV talk.
Right.
Yes, shows that are going off the air, shows that are coming on the air.
We have to talk about the season finales of Hannibal, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Supernatural.
Yes.
Also, the new season of Teen Wolf starts in June.
Yes. So we can talk about all sorts of TV stuff. So that will be next week.
Until then, have a fantastic week, Patrick.
See you as well.